Most women don't feel comfortable just walking around. Having wrestled my whole life and done combat sports my whole life, you gain a sense of self-confidence, I think, just walking around and maneuvering the world that I didn't realize till I was older that not all girls and women get to experience. Like, a lot of women are just walking around Earth scared.
What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of HDR Podcast, where I have the honor to sit with one of the most decorated female wrestlers, first ever 4-time women's collegiate national champion, 2-time Olympic alternate, and future UFC atomweight champion, Mrs. Victoria. Thank you for coming on. Okay. This is an honor.
Thank you so much for having me.
I don't think I did you justice by, you have a million accolades, but I mean, we'll just get into the wrestling world that you live in. What inspired you to first get into wrestling?
Yeah, so I started with Judo first. Are you familiar with Judo?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I started at 6 years old in Judo because basically my dad was doing that and a bunch of other martial arts when I was a little girl. And like the only thing I ever wanted to be was a ninja. That was like my biggest dream.
How perfect is that?
Yeah, it's amazing that obviously that's a viable career path as a woman now in the UFC. But I started with Judo and I just got crazy about it really fast. Like, just my poor dad, he would come home in LA traffic, 45 minutes, an hour, just to pick me up and then go backwards the other direction.
Good dad,
and I did that until I was 14, and then I broke my wrist at Judo Nationals. My initial goal was to be an Olympian in Judo, and I was on track for that, and then I ended up having to have a wrist surgery to reattach the tendons, and I was out of sport for a year. My parents were like, why don't you try wrestling when you get to high school, because you've been an athlete all your life, and I'm diagnosed ADHD, so I'm like hyperactive, and they're like, you're driving us crazy, you need to do something. And I was like, absolutely not, I'm not gonna join the boys wrestling team, because there was no girls wrestling team at the time. And I ended up seeing a demonstration in my high school PE class my freshman year, and I knew if you play a sport, you get out of PE, you don't have to do PE anymore, and I hated PE. So that's what got me into wrestling, is that I just was like, okay, this is the only sport I actually know how to play in the school. I'm not good at any other sport.
And it gets me out of PE.
And it'll get me out of PE, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I mean, Judo, did you ever compete in Judo again after the surgery, or just
I actually
wrestle?
did, yeah. So 14, my freshman year is when I started wrestling. And then at 16, I was like, I kind of just left Judo and forgot about it, but that was, my lifelong goal. So I was like, let me go back. And I went back for a little bit and competed at one of my first senior level tournaments, and I did well. Like, I took second at this senior level tournament that would be, the direction towards the Olympic team in Judo. And I was like, this isn't as fun for me as wrestling is. Like, it's less high paced for me anyway. But I still love the sport of Judo. I love to watch it, and all of my wrestling comes from Judo. Like, the entire basis of my technique comes from Judo.
And that's why it's pretty powerful. Like, you obviously have that power. Ronda. Like Ronda Rousey, obviously her Judo base really took her far. Yes. And we'll get into this, but you went Judo, and obviously you dominated in wrestling, and you are thinking MMA. So we'll get to that. Is that right?
Yeah. I have 4 amateur MMA fights, and then I'm just on the brink of turning pro. Yeah.
And dominating is, like I said, I didn't mean to get ahead of ourselves. I want to get into the MMA career, but I really love hearing the, Judo to wrestling, and you're a female. Obviously, it started out as a pretty male-heavy sport, but now it's so more mainstream, and I feel like you guys should give get the credit you deserve. That, if you don't mind, I'd love to go through that with you. Like, was it common for girls to wrestle when you first began?
Right. A lot less common than it is now. Right now, and it has been for a number of years, the fastest growing high school sport is women's wrestling. So that's crazy to me because, as I said, I had to join the boys wrestling team, which is why I didn't want to do it. Yeah. I was like, this is going to be social suicide as a girl to join the boys wrestling team. Now, I'm not going to fit in on that team, obviously, because the girls. And then I'm not going to fit in at the school at large because I'm like the weird girl that's now on the boys wrestling. Like, I don't want to do this. Aww. But now it's amazing. There's full girls teams. I teach a lot of clinics and seminars around the country. And one of them, they had a full separate boys and girls wrestling room. I don't know if that's common, but to me, that was like insane. Like, you have a wrestling room for each gender. That's crazy. Because girls, we would just kind of have to like fit in where we could a lot.
Yeah.
And my generation, people will call, my generation pioneers, but to me, the women that came before me had it way, way harder. So I don't think of it as much as that way, because the girls that came before me were like, I mean, such a struggle. There were girls' college teams for me to go to and go wrestle on. I went to Canada for my undergrad and wrestled up there because there were limited options in the US, but like the generation before me had zero options.
Yeah.
So yeah, did I answer the question?
100%. And I mean, this kind of leads into the next question of not only finding female opponents to wrestle and have full teams, but was it hard to find female opponents that also were in the same weight class? Like, how hard was it or did you just have to wrestle guys?
So I did have, I mean, I suppose I had the choice. So when I joined the wrestling team in high school, there was only a boys wrestling team, but there was girls tournaments going on. I'm from California, so there were girls tournaments going on, and I could have only wrestled girls if I wanted to. There were girls tournaments on the weekends and all that, and there was an unsanctioned California girls state. So now, like 1 or 2 years after I graduated high school, they sanctioned it. And now there's, I believe, 48 or 49 of our 50 states have sanctioned high school girls wrestling championships. Yeah, so that's cool. But I had the choice, and I'm pretty grateful. I was a 103-pounder, so I could compete like speed and strength. There were still some guys that were just way stronger than me, that type of thing. But for the most part, I was in a weight class where I could compete with the boys. Like I did really well. I'm the first girl to have won a California boys CIF championship, which is like our what is it called? We go league, CIF. That's what I won. What is the next? Masters, then state. So all the states are a little bit different, but that was cool because I got to. I mean, it was really difficult. Like I wrestled boys for 4 years.
Yeah.
But it definitely shaped me into the woman that I am, really, because I was constantly in an uncomfortable situation, and wrestling already is probably, in my opinion, one of the most uncomfortable things you could choose to do. Like, I think most people would agree wrestling is the hardest part of MMA. You get so exhausted, like all these. And then on top of that, like, I salute any girl wrestlers that have gone through it competing on the boys team and on the boys side, because they're always like trying to like, they're like, we got to get you like a locker room to weigh in, and it's just always, you're always uncomfortable.
Totally.
So yeah, but it has shaped me into who I am, and I'm appreciative of that.
How do the lives of girls who grow up wrestling differ from others?
I mean, I suppose I just kind of mentioned it. It was different when I was wrestling. Now it's just a normal sport, the same way that, like there's swimming and soccer and all that for girls, where they have an actual team that they can just go join the girls wrestling team. It's like amazing, you know. I would say, I guess it wouldn't really differ. Just as a wrestler in total, you grow up cutting weight.
Yeah.
You grow up doing what, as I mentioned, I think it's the most uncomfortable sport you could choose to do. I'm trying to think. What do you think? What would be more uncomfortable?
Well, no.
Can you think of anything?
I can't.
Yeah.
And especially, I think as a female wrestler, like, does it feel like a female wrestler specifically, it would grow up differently, feeling kind of isolated, where you don't fully fit in on the boys team because, you know, you're kicking their butt and you're a female, but then you also are a very feminine person. And so maybe aesthetically, like, people, immature boys at school might be like, well, she's tough, like she's whatever. It's hard to stay, you know, I'm also this girl. Did it feel isolated ever?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know if isolated is the word I would use, but yeah, I just felt like I didn't fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that was me. I was a 14-year-old girl too. So I know that I was very hyper aware, I guess, of like, or thinking of how I'm being perceived and all that type of stuff, as you are when you're going through puberty, basically, and you're like, you're starting to get an awareness of, oh my gosh, other people see me maybe differently than I see myself, and it's all a bit uncomfortable. So I think, and I was not a confident I was like confident in my sport, and I was confident in certain ways, but I was just coming into like who I am as a person.
It's hard to do just as a regular kid in high school,
yeah, exactly.
As a badass wrestler, did you ever feel like it was difficult to prove your femininity? Like, did you ever, because you're a beautiful woman, and I feel weird saying that, you might have to edit that.
No, it's okay.
But, you know, were you able to maintain that?
Yeah, so I think I like really wanted to focus on femininity, probably to the point where it even hurt my wrestling career, because and this was since I was like 16 years old, I didn't want to get too jacked. Harrison, I'm black, so I'm gonna get jacked regardless.
You are
like
naturally
no matter what, I'm jacked. So I didn't want to lift as much, because I didn't want to get overly muscular. And then there was like plenty of things like that where I wanted to maintain my femininity. And I'm like, that's one of the reasons I didn't want to join the boys team, because like, how am I going to get a date at the school? I'm not going to be like normal as a young woman. But it just is what it is at the same time. Like, I knew in my heart that there's something for me here. So young me chose to do it, and I'm so grateful to her.
So grateful.
Because I could have easily been like, I'm going to put my social standing in the school above whatever's like in my heart to compete, you know?
And as an adult, that sounds crazy, but
yeah,
when
it would
you're
be
a kid,
such a
you're
bad
kinda
idea.
like, that's a legit decision people have to make.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
So glad you did it.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. I know. I'm always so grateful to my younger self, because I'm like, thank God, even though I know that wasn't easy for you.
I'm sure it was terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, decisions are real. Then I have, 3 daughters. One now is in high school, and I know that she has to make decisions now.
Right.
That to me are like, you have no idea. When you're an adult, you're not going to care at all about that.
Right,
But
yeah.
at the respect.
Thank you.
So where did your nickname Vortex come from?
That's such a funny one. Okay, I wish I had a cooler story for this, but I think I already mentioned I'm diagnosed ADHD, which...
Same.
Yo, you are? Okay, awesome. Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah.
That's why he hates when I get off tangents.
Right.
He's like,
Only I'm allowed to do the tangenting.
yes.
Yeah, so I don't know what your kind of like, I suppose, symptoms or behaviors that come with that are for you, but for me, I'm like always been like just chaotic, like a mess, and kind of just, I always have like a lot of bags, and I'm tightening things up as I mature and whatever. But I had literally just gotten to the Olympic Training Center. This was for a national team camp that we had, and 2 of the other girls that were on the U.S. national team, my friends Amanda and Julia, they were like, we literally just got there. You come in, you fly into Colorado Springs, you get on a bus, a shuttle to the training center. Have you been to the training center or no? Yeah, so it's the Olympic Training Center. It has wrestling and a bunch of other Olympic sports. We do our national team training camps there. We get on the bus, we get our keys, you go to the front desk, get your keys, and you go to your room, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go to the cafeteria, we'll come get you. And we've been there 5 minutes, and like, they come in, and I don't even have a perception of that this doesn't look right, but my door is open. There's like suitcases dumped out everywhere. I had already lost my key that they gave me 5 minutes ago. So I've like dumped everything out. The fridge door is open. Like, I must have thought maybe I'd left it in the fridge. A lamp was knocked over, and they were like, you're like a vortex. Like, how did you do this so quickly? So that's where
Victoria
that was the
has
initial.
been here.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So Amanda, thank you. She gave me my stage name.
It's perfect, and it sticks, and honestly, now I'm going to look at that name totally different.
Yeah, no, I know it's not that cool. But for my style, I think it suits me in a lot of different ways. Like, it suits my style, and I'm fast and explosive. And
I was going to say, not only your personality, but your style, which is exciting. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
But, have you experienced discrimination as a female in wrestling?
You know what? I've been pretty lucky on that front. To be honest, one of the only instances I remember of discrimination would be from another girl. There actually were 2 girls on the wrestling team when I joined. And this girl named Desiree, that I think my mom was like a crosswalk guard, and they had some type of beef. Like, my mom and this girl had got into it before. I didn't know that. As I mentioned, I was like uncomfortable and kind of like scared. And I was like, oh, cool. There's 2 girls already on the team. That's awesome. Like, I'm not actually the only girl joining the team. This girl, she was dating a guy on the wrestling team that I was joining, my high school wrestling team. And one day after school, she like pushed me up against the locker. I'd never been in a fight before. Besides actually fighting, at real fights, in a cage, I have never been in a fight in my life. So she's like, I'm 14 years old. She pushed me up against the locker, and she's like, I know that you're joining the boys wrestling team because you just want attention and you're a slut and all this stuff. And I was like, at that point, I haven't even kissed a boy. I'm like, what is going on? This is like not what I was going for at all. So that was one instance of weird discrimination.
Yeah.
That was very strange. Otherwise,
from another female, because I hear, female wrestlers sometimes don't have their own, mats to practice on because the boys wrestle or locker rooms, like you guys are having to find. So discrimination like that was never an experience? So, I mean, I wouldn't call it discrimination. It was just like how the system was not set up for us yet because there weren't full girls teams. There wasn't a girls locker room, but there wasn't a girls team at the time. And now I'm sure they're like creating the infrastructure around that. So I guess there was nothing I like took to heart in that way, because I was just like, we're just paving a way literally right now. We're figuring out how to work our way through this situation all together. I was really lucky too that my high school coach treated me like he treated the rest of the boys, which
honestly was not actually to my dismay sometimes because I was more emotional than the rest of the boys. But no, he just like, he didn't discourage me from wrestling. He encouraged me to wrestle. I know a lot of girls do have to deal with that, where someone discourages them. They don't want them on the team. They have to deal with that. I didn't have to deal with that, so that's something I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. I mean, and that girl, she was a wrestler, right?
Yeah, I guess you could call her
kind of intimidating, you know. First
she was bigger than me too. She was like a lot bigger than me. I was like, what is happening? And I was like, I'm doing this because it looks like judo, literally. I'm like, I think I'll actually be pretty good. But
and you're like, you toss her. Dude, I thank you for sharing that story. I can't imagine any girl getting in your face.
Silly, just so silly.
Well, this kind of answered that question then. Did you ever get in any fights growing up other than that?
Yeah, surprisingly, that was the only one that wasn't even a fight. It was just like an altercation. But I can't recall any other altercations. And those are my memories.
Nice. Like, who would want
I honestly
to?
think so, yeah. I think I like kind of beat bop around and never really get myself in any situations that are like that. I'm not sure.
It's beautiful.
One thing I will say about that, though, that I really appreciate about having wrestled my whole life and done combat sports my whole life, and why I think other women and girls should do some type of combat sport, whether it's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, taekwondo, I don't care what it is, but you gain a sense of self-confidence, I think, just walking around and maneuvering the world, that I didn't realize till I was older that not all girls and women get to experience. Like, a lot of women are just walking around Earth scared,
Totally.
like constantly scared, and I didn't know that. I think until really social media, I maybe saw some reels, and I didn't realize that most women don't feel comfortable just walking around out, like, in public areas at night, which there's, for sure, you need to be street smart and you need to be aware and like don't walk down dark alleys and that type of thing. But I've traveled probably 20 countries by myself, like no one else, and I literally never had an issue. Not saying there couldn't have been an issue, but the only two places I've ever felt unsafe were in U.S. cities, like one night in L.A. and one night in New York that I can remember.
Whoa.
But otherwise, I think that, especially doing it my whole life, like there's an energy that I bring too that I'm not someone you should prey on. That's what I've gathered over like the kind of just reflecting on everything. And it's nice to have
people
that.
Who try to prey on, women that might not be, they feel energy. And when people are like not afraid, they're like, whoa, maybe I'll stay away from.
I think so, yeah. And like there's not as much vulnerability there. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It's one thing that's a really great thing about competing in combat sports as a woman.
100%. And like I said, being a father of 3 girls, I'm kind of like, it's weird that I want them to get into fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not normal, but maybe. What's one thing wrestling took away from your youth that you sometimes miss?
I think because I was so competitive, like my mindset was, I was constantly just striving to figure out how I can be better and do more and all that all the time, that it was probably not as fun as it could have been.
Yeah.
And I think that's from my youth, but also just competing in total. When I look back on my wrestling career now that I've transitioned to MMA, I'm like, that could have been a lot more fun if I didn't put so much like weight and pressure on improving every single day and like getting the maximum out of it I can, and also just kind of like the mental thoughts that go with that, because I think we can, you learn to have positive self-talk and all these different things as you go through your career. But I think that it was like not as fun as it could have been my youth in that my whole career.
And I feel like that's every champion that's striving to be the greatest. It's like sometimes you don't realize the cost that you're paying, looking back on what you could have experienced, but sometimes that's worth it. Like, especially with some of the ups that you've had, it's probably like, would you have changed it?
I think that when I like reflect on it, I don't think it was necessary to, I think there was just a slightly better way to have gone about it that I would have enjoyed and come out with the same result or better. So I think sometimes it goes a little too far that we're like overthinking and constantly just like it gets a bit too heavy sometimes. And I think that like I did that to myself. I could have enjoyed myself a little bit more. And it wasn't until my last match, my second to last match. No, my third to last match. So, okay, let me go backwards. It was in the semifinals of the Olympic team trials. That was the first and only time I can really remember celebrating a match. And I don't know why exactly I was like that my whole career. Like, it was just never kind of good enough. Like, I would end a match and know I could have competed better. Like, I I maybe won, but I didn't tech the girl, or I won, but I made mistakes. And so that was what I would hyper focus on, which is how you get better. But I think just to any other athletes, I think there's a balance in that. And,
sure.
you know, it can also hurt you too.